So in that case, we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you for attending October 13th meeting of the Climate Action Advisory Committee. We will start with introductions and we'll see if more folks wander in, and then we can officially make it a committee of the whole, since we might need a little more for quorum. But let's start with introductions, and I will go by jurisdiction. So let's start with Cloverdale. Just introduce us, and maybe since it's your first meeting, just a little bit of background.
Sure. Hi, my name is Kristen Morrison. I live with my family in Cloverdale. We've lived there for about 6 years. I'm originally from Georgia, moved out here in the mid-2000s, and have worked at Preston Farm and Winery as the main farmer for about 10 years.
Thanks. And then moving on to Qatar. And then Healdsburg.
My name is Stephanie Turk, and I live in Healdsburg. And I missed the last meeting. Sorry. But I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And then move into Petaluma.
Beverly Shore. I live in Petaluma. I've lived there for about 13 years, and I've been on this committee 2.5 years.
Thank you. And Rohnert Park. And in that case, we will move on to Santa Rosa.
Kevin Conway, representing Santa Rosa, and I've lived in Santa Rosa for 39 years.
Thank you. And Sebastian.
Sure, I'll start. I'm Josh Asemane. I'm on that Climate Action Committee in Sebastopol. Been in town about 7-8 years. The landscape architect.
Excellent.
Xander Shining, Sebastopol, also on the same committee with the city. I'm not an American citizen, if that is a problem here. I just wanted to mention it up front. I'm still European.
Not a problem at all. But you're from Sebastopol. Sorry, they're just making sure we got it on. Cheers, Adam. Did I steal yours now? Excellent. Then moving on to town of Sonoma.
Yeah, David Leland. Actually, I live in the spring. After 30 years.
And
I'm also from Sonoma, I guess. Tom Conlon. Hi, everybody. I'm now serving on the Climate Action Commission for the city, although I too live just outside the city limits. And I've been there since the last millennium.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Windsor, Christopher today. And County of Sonoma, Corsi's District. We have
Tyler Sylvie from Santa Rosa, and I'm also a Southern transplant from Oklahoma. I'm as far south as you, but now that I know you're Southerner, I'm definitely going to come to your pumpkin. And I think been on the committee about a year.
Thank you. And then County of Sonoma, Director Rabbit's district.
That would be me, Jake McKenzie, City of Rohnert Park. Been around a long time.
Indeed. And lastly, we have County of Sonoma District 5. Hopkins.
Yes, hi, I'm Juniper Shares, and I live outside of Sebastopol in District 5, and this is my first meeting. Happy to be here.
Welcome. And Pete, I know if you just want to give a quick introduction, I'd already passed Petaluma, but
yes, sorry for being late. Pete Gang, Petaluma. I've been on this body for 3 or 4 years.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody on this? I don't believe so. How we looking, Drew, number wise? 2 more. All right. Well, at this point, as we do not have a quorum, we will continue as a committee of the whole. That means we're going to bump the meeting minutes for approval the next time we do have a quorum. Anything else I need to do, Drew, in terms of voting to do that, or no? We just do it to the next meeting. Okay, thank you. So in that case, we will get into the content of the meeting, and we will have a presentation on the RCPA Community-Wide Greenhouse Gas Inventory program.
Can we have your staff information?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm Ross Condetta, communications for SCTA, RCPA. And pass it down to that.
And I'm Tanya Nareth, Director of Climate Programs for the RCPA. I'm not sure what's introduced. Everybody knows her.
Sure, Nichols, the CCA, RCPA. I make sure the meetings run well.
I'm Anna Oliva. I'm new to RCPA and I'm working as a BayREN program specialist.
My name is James Cameron. I've been with the SCTA and RCPA since March of 2012. And today is Suzanne's last day in the office. So then starting on Monday, I'll be succeeding her as the executive director as SCTA and RCPA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. So happy to be here. Looking forward to being more involved with the RCPA side. I've definitely been involved behind the scenes, especially on the financial side. And looking forward to working more with all of you and Tanya and the RCPA team.
And I'm Adam Garcia, data analyst with SCTA RCPA.
All right, thank you. Yeah, let's proceed to item 2, public comment. Item 2,
public comment.
Do we have any public comment pre-submitted?
Yeah, just want to make it for the record that it was off.
Yeah.
And then also I want to note that Shirley Johnson is on the screen.
Oh, Shirley Johnson, I'm not feeling well today. I apologize for not making it in person, but I will be watching everything.
Excellent, thank you. And Roner Park is your jurisdiction?
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you for watching.
Does that give us a quorum now?
It wouldn't count if it was online unless she was utilizing AB 2449. And we'd still be one short, I believe.
Just checking.
Yeah, it's worth checking, definitely. We're this close. All right, so public comment, nothing in the room, nothing online. So we will proceed to.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Somebody saying we have a phone table. So much some room for quorum. Is it possible to lower the quorum? Because it seems there's a lot of enthusiasm to come together.
Well, we in this case, so we're close, but some of that is because there's not a lot of vacancies. You know, so what we've done with our Citizens Advisory Committee is if we have a vacancy that's open for more than 3 consecutive meetings, we count that as a vacancy and it does not count towards the quorum. Even using those rules, we haven't really had that here. And so we're, you know, it's 24 members total and we have 1 official vacancy, the rest of it is filled. And so we've got to have 50% plus 1 to have a quorum. So unfortunately we're close. But you know, just due to being in person and those kind of Brown Act obstacles, we don't quite have it. Hopefully we will. Let's see. So we will proceed to item 4. Tanya,
all right,
ready to present.
Great, thank you, Ross, and thank you all for being here. And Shirley, I'm sorry that you're not feeling well, and thanks for joining us via Zoom. So today I'd like to give you a brief update on the work that RCPA is doing around our next greenhouse gas inventory update, and also some what we feel is exciting work to create a better way of for the public and members of our board and committees to actually drill down into the greenhouse gas inventory data that we're pulling together, as well as looking at developing other indicators of climate resilience that we can track more frequently than our greenhouse gas inventory. So I'd like to just give you a brief update today, and also I'm hoping to get some feedback from all of you in terms of what you'd like to see in an online climate dashboard. So first, just a brief recap of our greenhouse gas inventory history. So this graph shows you that we did our first, or published our first RCPA inventory back in 2016, which was our 2010 baseline as part of the Climate Action 2020 and Beyond plan and the 1990 backcast. And then roughly every 2 years, actually it is every 2 years, we've released an update to the greenhouse gas inventory. So we did an update to 2015, 2018, and then our most recent inventory released in 2022 covered calendar year 2020. You can see the climate goals that we have, the original set that were part of Climate Action 2020, which was to achieve 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. And then when our board adopted our climate mobilization strategy in 2021, they made that goal much more ambitious, and the goal is now carbon neutral by 2030, which we've interpreted to be 80% below 1990 levels by 2030, and then carbon sequestration for the remaining 20%. So just a brief reminder of our progress and goals. This is a chart shows our inventories over time, and including our most recent inventory. And as you may recall, and actually on the previous slide, we had the 2020 goal, the Climate Action 2020 plan goal of being 25% below our 1990 levels by 2020. And we came very close to that with this inventory. We achieved about a 23% reduction in emissions as of 2020, which is, you know, a really great accomplishment. We didn't quite get to our goal, but made great progress. So in terms of our dashboard and what we're looking at for the next inventory, so BC is starting to work on gathering data for the next inventory, which we plan to release in probably late spring, early summer. And that will cover data for the calendar year 2022. And we think this, well, this should give us a really good indication of how COVID, how temporary or permanent the impacts that we saw from COVID are in our data. And as you may recall, we did see a decrease in transportation BMT due to COVID, which, you know, might have artificially made our numbers lower. Well, not artificially, they actually were that in that calendar year, but maybe not sustainable. If folks return to the level of driving that they've been doing prior to COVID, then we'll probably see that number go back up. So we're really interested to see what's happened with our emissions in 2022. This slide shows the kind of core sectors that we have been measuring over time. Building energy, transportation, water, wastewater, solid waste, and agriculture. And we do plan to measure these same sectors again this year, or for 2022 for consistency. We've also been working with our local jurisdictions to better understand the type of drill down information that they'd like to see in the report that we've published in 2022. And our plan is also to be able to take the numbers from previous inventories and also publish those in a more transparent way for our jurisdictions and community to see. And then lastly, we're also staying in contact with our jurisdictions that are doing their own municipal inventories. And as you may know, the County of Sonoma, for example, just released its municipal climate GHG inventory for its internal operations. And so we also envision being able to share that information in kind of a central repository for those jurisdictions that have done their own internal inventories. And just one reminder for our RCPA inventory, the community-wide inventory is a combination of our community emissions as well as the municipal emissions. So we capture everything within that inventory, but we don't break it out between municipal and community level data. So as we're starting to think about the GHG dashboard, and I want to give a shout out to Adam. He's been working closely with BC to be thinking through how it is that we can better display this data. They've been looking at different tools to be able to portray the data. And I believe have settled on Microsoft Power BI as the tool that we'll be using. And it's actually a tool that's being used by a number of places outside of Sonoma County. So we can leverage work that's been done elsewhere, which is really great in terms of being able to do this work more quickly. So here, this is a list of some of the features that we'd like to see in this online dashboard. So the ability to drill down and filter by different factors like the GHG sector, the year, the jurisdiction. So if you wanted to know what are all of the transportation emissions in my city of Santa Rosa, you'd have an easier way of doing that with this new dashboard. We're also looking at making the data available for downloading because we know that folks like to take the numbers and chart them and graph them in different ways. And so we'd like to have that as a feature. And then finally, incorporating in more indicators that can help us track other aspects of our work around climate, those co-benefits, the topics that we want to be making more visible to folks. So this slide talks about, we're thinking about who might want to use this data dashboard or climate dashboard. And then what are some of the use cases? Why would someone want to take some time to go online and look at this dashboard? So we believe that local government staff, community advocates, members of the public would want to see this dashboard. And so we're trying to keep those different audiences in mind as we develop this dashboard. And then in terms of anticipated use cases, obviously being able to display the greenhouse gas emissions data, easily being able to tell how have different sectors changed over time. So we know, for example, that our building energy has decreased over time very significantly, due primarily to Sonoma Clean Power. And so being able to maybe drill into that a bit more and see, well, how have emissions from the electricity piece of that puzzle changed versus emissions from natural gas? And so this dashboard could help you see that more easily for your own jurisdiction. And then, as I mentioned, being able to display other types of data, resilience data, maybe data around community health, rates of asthma, other types of indicators that could show us how we're doing in terms of improving quality of life here in Sonoma County. We're thinking about having perhaps a jurisdiction-specific page that would allow you to see not only the emissions data, but perhaps link to a jurisdiction's climate action plan, or even incorporate some key elements of that plan into the screen so that you could easily see both the historical information and then what are the actions that are being taken to address those emissions. So this slide is just a couple of visual examples of the types of data that we'd like to be able to portray. So, showing VMT data, for example, our transit system. How are we doing in terms of electrifying our transit system? As I mentioned, being able to see more fine-grained details like electricity use and consumption, as well as emissions, natural gas, looking at some of our efficiency or electrification efforts, how many heat pump water heaters have been installed in Sonoma County over the last X number of time period. So all of this information, we're kind of brainstorming now, what might we be able to include, looking to see where we have good sources of data, and then getting input from all of you, from our board, from other folks to make sure that we're capturing the information that would be of most value to you. So then I'd like to share just a couple of examples. I mentioned that other jurisdictions, other parts of the country have developed these types of dashboards, and I believe these examples are all using Power BI. Adam can jump in here if I'm not correct. So you can see the types of information that could be displayed on a dashboard. And we can include links to these, share links to these if you'd like to go check them out in more detail yourselves. So this one is from Project Drawdown, I believe in Georgia. And then here is one from Massachusetts. So you can see they all kind of have different look and feel to it, different types of information that's being shared by the different locations. And then here's an even simpler view, just focusing or honing in on energy emissions by utility. And here's the information about, the percent of the usage that's in natural gas versus electricity. So lastly, we've, Adam and BC have just started kind of mocking up or thinking through what could an RCPA dashboard look like. So this is just, purely here as an example to get you thinking. And so today I would love to get any comments or feedback that you have around other users of the dashboard as you think about your own communities. Are there other people or groups that you think would be interested and might have a different interest in terms of what's displayed on the dashboard? Are there other examples of how this dashboard could be used that you think we should take into consideration as we're developing it? And are there other indicators or, thinking about indicators that you'd like to see displayed alongside the greenhouse gas emissions data? And Adam, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, just one quick comment to mention that I'm not sure if I missed it, but one of the additional sectors that we're going to be adding is going to be something along the lines of lands and forests.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of focus somewhat on sequestration, but realizing that maybe any of those areas could potentially sequester carbon. But that's the next kind of big sector that we're going to be adding in as part of BC's update.
Great, thank you. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to the group. I'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have. Yeah, Jake.
Yeah, mechanically, where are we in terms of a budget to establish the dashboard?
Great question.
And do we have an agreement amongst all of the members of RCPA, the board of directors, that each of the 9 cities and the county, and I see someone from the county of Sonoma up on our screen now has joined us. So is everything in place to actually start building the dashboard and getting the data, sort of almost mandating that the data come from the 9 jurisdictions in the country?
Great question. So I would say from a technical standpoint, I mentioned Power BI. So the good news is that Power BI is a tool that we have available to us to use at no cost. It's part of our package of software that we get through our connection with the county. So from a technical standpoint, we do have that platform in place. In terms of the data, that's part of what BC and Adam are working through. You know, what are the sources of data? So we've got our inventory, which is data that we already, produce. But then for all these other indicators, we need to determine, is the data available to us? Is it, available at no cost? What are the implications? So they're in the, process of doing that. But then probably I won't say the most challenging, but the other really important aspect, which you brought up, Jake, is getting agreement about the information that is going to be shared via this dashboard. And we do need to work with our board and with our jurisdictions about the types of information they want us to be sharing through the central platform. So that piece, we're just beginning. We gave this presentation to our board on Monday. We're going to be coming back with a prototype. Yeah. And then also working with each of our jurisdictional contacts as we develop this dashboard to get their input. So.
And my comment would be that at the beginning of your presentation, you indicated what the goals are in terms of 2030 and the out years. And to me, whatever else is available through the dashboard, there should be a constant drumbeat as to how are we doing to arrive at these goals. 23%, not 25% in 2020, but it's only 6 years now till 2030, and that's a pretty big leap.
Hugely, yeah.
And so that would be my comment. I think all of the ancillary benefits to local researchers, Sonoma State, the JC, whoever, all of these are great things, but to me, it would be to be sure not to lose focus on meeting the goals.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. See, I don't know who was first. Maybe I'll start with Stephanie and then Pete.
Go ahead. Okay, thanks. So a couple questions. One, I think this is really useful. I can see myself and the other advocates from Healdsburg using it, as well as the city staff as they're making their climate mobilization strategy. The data is great. Will it be updated only when you're doing your new dashboard updates, so like annually, or would it be updated more frequently?
So it depends on the data source. So the data around the greenhouse gas inventory would be updated when we update the inventory, which currently we're doing that every 2 years, 2 to 3 years. But what we are thinking about with the indicators is, could we, for example, be showing electricity and natural gas usage on a more frequent basis, maybe annually? So you can start to see those trends more quickly. VMT data we have access to more often than every 2 to 3 years. So it's really going to depend on that data source as to how quickly it's refreshed.
And then second question, I guess you'll note at some, like when the last update was for all the data points on there.
Yeah.
We'll be able to use the dashboard on a mobile device?
Yes, Power BI has the ability to be used on mobile devices.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see who was next, Pete.
I just wanted to, my main comment was right in line with what Jake said. I would suggest that in whatever interfaces we have, we clearly show what our goal looks like by 2030.
Yeah.
Just to keep things in perspective. And the other comment is, I acknowledge that we are not in control of consumption-based emissions, that we're only looking at activity-based emissions, but it would be good to, in some way, just keep that thread alive so that it's just too easy for us to neglect, just forget about our consumption-based emissions, which are significant.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how we would could do that, or what would be most helpful?
Well, in all the pie charts that we're used to seeing of that show our activity-based emissions, it would be helpful to at least in places see those activity-based emissions within the context of our total emissions, and just to make people aware that consumption-based emissions are a real thing because they're invisible. It's a kind of a third rail topic that nobody really wants to talk about because it touches on consumption and business, but still, it needs to be talked about. It's real.
Thank you.
Yeah,
June?
I just wanted to hop on
that
and say, yeah, I would appreciate that. And I think one way that might be useful is just on all the areas that are excluded. I really appreciated having those listed here and having that listed on the dashboard. Here's this doesn't count.
What's not included, yeah.
And giving a sense of scale, you know, what it maybe we're not tracking it, so it's harder to know accurately, but estimated to be between this and this much greenhouse gas emissions annually. So there's a way to see in perspective to what we are measuring, how much is outside of that. And in each category that we're not counting, in each of these, the best estimate we could do. I think that would be really helpful for people to then remember that they want to think about those other areas and points to address them. So,
thank you. Right, Beverly.
I just wanted to give a vote of support for sequestration to be a definite part of that. I know that Petaluma, the strength of what Petaluma is able to accomplish is done by community-based organizations like Relief and, you know, Safe Streets, all of the things that really are pushing the city to move in the right direction. So I think that any activity that can help support those community-based activities only strengthens what we are able to accomplish on a municipal and county level.
Joshua, and then
yeah, I'll say up front that I'm no expert on metrics and the data sources and all that sort of thing, and you're probably on top of a certain amount of the stuff I'm already going to mention. But for Sebastopol, I know that the majority of our emissions is associated with transportation. And we're in a funny position being a little bit of a hub town in this unincorporated areas. And so there's all these miles traveled that are not the people in the town, but related. With respect to that, some of that cross correlation between the vehicle miles traveled, particularly to the extent to which that can be mapped with the emissions in areas and by sector of activity, such that we can start to unpack some of that sense of how the actual transportation patterns are affecting the emissions patterns in the county, I think would be great if that were presented in some way, because we can strategize about it. To me, there's a connection also with the sequestration and the open space aspects. If we can say that by preserving and enhancing certain amounts of open space, we can have a sequestration impact that can relate to some of those traffic patterns, which may well be caused by just the development patterns we're inheriting from the 20th century and that sort of thing. So just some of those links between the patterns in different kinds of data and how those can help suggest what we could do about it.
Great. Yeah, I see Adam thumbs up. Yes, Dave.
I was wondering if there's any thought into trying to break the county element of this into geographies. And maybe by supervisorial district, unincorporated supervisorial district, because there's such a variation amongst the different parts of the county that way. And there's a lot of population in some places, like in Sonoma Valley, that most of the population is unincorporated. I think there'd be some value, and especially linking it to supervisorial district, there would be some ownership that the supervisors could take then relative to what's going on in their district.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it actually came up in our board meeting this Monday. I believe it was Director Hopkins expressed an interest in being able to see that breakout within her district. And I think for us, it's probably going to be a matter of the data sources again, and do we have the data, the ability to break the data out in that way. But definitely want to take a look at that, because you're right, it's a big area just to lump everything in unincorporated. So yeah,
I'm not second that, in about small, there's a need for a zip code based data in our group. Is that part of the breakdown? Maybe even census tracts, which is especially, I think, important for equity issues, like what neighborhoods, what happens where, right? And census tract correlate with social protection and poverty, wellness, things like that. So they would become more actionable if we have breaking down of all these county data in more detail.
Yeah, I think that's a great input, and I think we can definitely look at our sources of data and see where we have the data broken down at that level. In some cases we probably do, in other cases we don't. So like our utility data, I don't believe that we get zip code or census tract information. I think it's just at the jurisdiction level, but again, we can certainly take a look at how that data could be built.
I think PG&E data is available by zip code.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. A lot of great comments around the table. I'm kind of impressed. The carbon sequestration being added, I think, is really important. I think we should understand, though, that the state legislature and the Air Resources Board has set the goal statewide at 85% GHG reduction, only 15% sequestration. So we're already being more aggressive here in our aspirations for sequestration. I guess the way we look at it is less aspirational in our GHG reductions. So I think the importance in that sector for our county is really, really important to get right, because we could easily overshoot if we're not good on that. So all the good comments about being clear about what's excluded from our metrics right now, thinking through what the repercussions might be if we are failing to capture consumption emissions. I haven't seen a lot of public process around Rincon's carbon stock assessment that I understand is in process right now. I know that that's ongoing. And so the questions that I have is, as we just showed, we have a GHG reduction trend line going back to 1990, which shows emissions reducing. Are we going to do a similar backcast of the carbon stock in the county back to 1990, so that we are apples and apples comparing the two methods of achieving our balance, our net neutral emissions? Or are we going to arbitrarily start at some later date and say we're just tracking GHG sequestration from this year forward or something? I think it's important for us to have that context, especially in the sense of understanding what the potential is county and what we may have already taken from that potential over the last 30 years. And then it's great to see you starting to think about resilience indicators. And I see the bullet list in the staff report. I'd like to think through that a little bit more, what our true resilience indicators are. You know, if you look at our GHG numbers for 2020, we were off forecast probably because we didn't anticipate a shock event of a pandemic. I think if we continue to fail to meet our goals globally, we're going to have more shock events. And so having a sense of what we're trying to capture resilience-wise to adapt our planning accordingly is going to be really important over the next 5 years.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how the wildfires impact the data, so that we say we're at a certain point from 1990 coming down, then we have the wildfires, 2017.
So, yeah.
Do we have some way of kind of saying overall, though, we're still, even with those wildfires, on the trajectory we want to be on, or has that?
Yeah, we don't factor in the wildfire. We don't have a way locally of measuring the impact of the wildfires. So yeah, it's not something that's included in our numbers. I know the state has done some estimation around the impact of wildfires, but it's not something that we've done here locally.
You are aware, though, that NAPA just issued a report, which is making some fairly aggressive assumptions in that area. I haven't been able to really scrutinize them yet, but I know there was some spirited discussion at a previous board meeting.
Is that an update to their inventory or some other type of report?
They have Rincon, actually. I think it's Rincon. No, I'm sorry. It's Ascent Environmental doing the quantitative carbon stock and emissions. And they're looking at black carbon and they're looking at forest fire emissions. So worth looking at, I think, as we dig into those details here, whether that's appropriate for us to track here.
Yeah, Jake?
Any legal matters have come up as you're starting to put this deal together? Those of us with a long memory remember the setbacks with
the lawsuit.
The lawsuit, which we decided not to appeal, as RCPA did not. The basis, as I remember, was that we had not taken into account the impact of tourism and the wine industry on the analysis that we were doing through that EIR. And I was just wondering if there'd been any thought to looking at that aspect that we were attacked on legally.
Yeah, not with our inventories, but yeah, Adam.
Yeah, one thing that our updated travel model accounts for are different winery focused areas, so we can more carefully track the vehicle miles traveled to and from those areas. So that's data that is being accounted for in terms of VMT and the equivalent emissions then. So that is an update that's most likely changed since that original lawsuit.
Okay, great. Appreciate it.
All right.
Comments?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Tyler.
First of all, thank you, staff, for all the work on this. Obviously, it's a lot of great work on the front end. One question I have is how much of the ongoing work to update the dashboard can be automated, or how much of a load is that on staff going forward? And is that something you've thought about? And I have some other questions too.
Okay, great question, but I think Adam can.
Yeah, so one of the things that is innovative about Power BI that we could try to potentially utilize for more automated updates is that if there's a separate data source, a table, ideally, that's linked and online, Power BI can just directly grab that data, reformat it how we see fit to integrate into our analysis. So if there's updated PG&E zip code data that's somewhere that we can link to that source, Power BI can just automatically automate that into our metrics, for instance. So that's kind of the key for that automation, is that it has to be posted and kept up to date live somewhere. And then that process can be just done automatically.
I do also wonder, is there any way to integrate the data, the great data we have, and for comparative purposes for regional, state, or national data, and maybe we're not all using the same stuff, so maybe that's not possible, but that might be something I might be interested in. Like, are we kicking Napa's butt, or are we not? And then in talking about the users, I don't think we can put too much emphasis on the public. Like, yes, right now that, you know, people aren't beating down the doors to be here, and we know we're going to be very interested in it, and other leaders are, but if it's a really cool and accessible tool, like some of the examples you showed, I feel like the public would be interested in using that, and maybe not ongoing, but at least seeing where we're at now. And so I would encourage us to think about how we market this new tool to the public through, you know, newsletters or whatever else, to encourage people to check this out and to care, because ultimately that matters a lot.
Yeah, that's a great input. Thank you.
And just to tag on to that, maybe to invite into the discussion people from SRJC, Sonoma State high schools, people who are teaching these areas to get their input. Yeah.
Oh, and one last thing, as a former media person, that's another user that will be involved in this, but is there a way that we could generate emails when something's updated on the dashboard. If people were interested, like I want to know when there's a new data dump on XYZ, they could subscribe to automated updates there. Or like if you're following a court case or, you know, financial filings or something.
If that be, you know, hopefully something, if it's not automated, we can at least coordinate it internally so that, you know,
give it updates.
Every RCPA newsletter could have a little, you know, if there's any dashboard updates, have a little section.
For sure.
Something.
But not wanting to put too much work on individual flesh and bones, you know.
All right, Jake, you have a question?
Media stimulated my brain to look at James Cameron coming into his new role, and certainly there's going to be a point in time, I think, where there needs to be a meeting with the Press Democrat editorial board and an outreach plan to accompany what we're doing, because this really merits a big splash once it's up and running, once it's a functioning dashboard that and I think we will gather a lot of individual public interest here in Sonoma County. So,
great. Jake's comment about the lawsuit got me thinking too, because you know, these data are some of the methodologies and the data sources have changed and are continuing to change. For example, one of the things in the court case was that the air emissions were not being tracked. The Air Resources Board has now made a decision to start tracking intrastate airline miles as part of both the low carbon fuel standard and the statewide inventory. Still not tracking international travel, still not tracking travel from Sonoma to New York City or from the Bay Area to New York City. But that makes me think we'll need to, if suddenly we're to have airline emissions added to 2022's data profile, that looks like an increase relative to the trend if we don't backcast that effect historic. So that's something I think you guys got to be thinking about, because otherwise our methodology is just frozen in time and no longer terribly accurate, especially in comparison to like statewide tools like carbs inventory. So that's something we'll want to take a closer look at over time. And maybe you've got a button that says, what is it really now? What was published in 2016? Have those different views of the data sets.
Certainly with the expansion of the Santa Rosa Airport, I mean, there's been a fairly major change.
Right. And that's activity, it's not consumption, that's still local activity based. So some of these proximate indicators like gallons of fuel sold in Sonoma County over time, you know, the aviation fuel is probably the input to that calculation for the airport.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
This is probably, it comes from a place of ignorance and it's probably an exceedingly silly question, but I love dashboards. And I have like my Nest thermostat and I get all my like individual things and I know how many trees I've saved in a month. Are we able to break down our county goals by region or supervisorial district or city, or even better, like by person? Like how much can my family save, and what are some steps we can take, and what's like the equivalent poundage of emissions that we save by these steps? And maybe that's not this dashboard, but I just curiosity got this.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit too far from what we can achieve right now, but I know there's a lot of research that's going into that to try to get to some of those questions. What I wanted to just mention wasn't one of the examples that was up there, but it's very exciting to see how to take this data and then be able to give people some direction. I think it's the Massachusetts example that was up there. After you go through, you know, your building section, for instance, you understand residential, commercial emissions. It ends with a section of what can you do as a business, as a government, and then as an individual. So there's specific recommendations that I think can just help do some of the work that we're trying to figure out. It's like, well, what can I do as an individual or as a family? What can I do as a city? What can I do as a business? Gets kind of that ball rolling. So there's a lot of potential we can think about for that.
I love that. An action step. What can we do?
Yeah. Great. All right. We probably should try and move on because I know we've got items.
And actually,
on
just
the agenda.
Very briefly before we move on to item 5, Drew, I don't know if you saw in the chat, we were just a discussion of AB 449 and illness related to Shirley. Would that make it a quorum? The question. I just wanted to double check on that. And then I also see a hand from Jane. Go ahead, Jane. Should be able to speak.
Hi, thank you. So I just had one quick question on just looking at the example 4 of the initial mock-up of what has been put up on this slide deck. By jurisdiction, wondering if by filtering down, for instance, clicking Cloverdale, would that then change the dashboard aspects of what's all interactive into that chart specific to that filter? Or is there going to, just also kind of comparing that to I think it's the drawdown Georgia and how you can click on a various county within that and it gives you that specific, obviously by county, but wondering if there's going to be something like that by city that you're thinking about that we could get from this dashboard.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. That's the exciting part about the dashboard. You can change your city, change your focus area, and then all of the data changes to be able to customize it based off that particular area of interest that you have. You can also select by time period as well too. So you can start to divide up those different data points by those buckets.
Okay, that was my next question is, can you go back and do a kind of a comparison of previous to current? Thank you. That's great.
So I think Zeno had a question and then Jake.
I just want, no, but who is Jane? This mysterious Jane who has appeared in front of us.
Jane, would you like to introduce yourself in your new role? Right, she has a couple different hats.
So, Jane Elias, City of Cloverdale representative for this committee. And another hat is the portfolio administrator for BayREN and working with ABAG MTC.
Thank you. I just wanted everybody to be aware.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, Zena.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's possible to show that these metrics are explanatory and actionable. So historically, can we actually see that what we did in the county had any impact looking at the timeline? And then if we reach certain points, how will that affect what we're doing? So maybe you can indicate already in advance that if this goes below this or above that, we need to change our behavior or action.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the transition for Sonoma Clean Power definitely shows in terms of electricity reduction over the years. So it would be challenging to, say on an individual small scale level, but something that's significant and countywide, we can absolutely see changes.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay. Do we have time? Should we take one more question, Ross? I know we're probably running out of time. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and Drew, did you? Sorry to.
Short answer is one thing with AB 2449 is I must be notified.
Right.
And so that's kind of the crux of it. Yeah. So we can, yes, for the just cause, illness is covered under just cause. However, I do have a pause because I was not notified.
I think just for safety, since we don't have big action items, I would suggest bringing just the notes back next time.
What I would
just
agree
to
with
be
you.
safe.
The only action that we would request from the committee today would be the approval of the July 8, 2022 meeting minutes.
So we'll roll those over.
Yeah.
So could you go over exactly what the quorum is at this point, I heard that there are 24 members minus one vacancy, that's 23, so a quorum would be 12, is that right? Half plus one, or
yeah,
more than half?
Two. Okay, because I was going, we've filled one of the vacancies. So
23.
Yeah.
I'm counting 12 of us here.
Yeah.
Isn't that a quorum then?
That should be.
And 13 was it?
Yeah.
13 was the number to meet quorum.
It's 12.
We're right on that.
Yeah. We're right on the cusp of it. So if another member comes in person, then we will have reached that quorum threshold.
So it's 11 and a half plus one, which makes it 13. Is that? I'm just trying to.
Sounds like.
Sorry, if that half person walks in.
That's why I studies in college.
I think
I was told there would be no math.
Right. Sorry.
No, so it's on. Yeah, so I have it as 13 being the official quorum. We currently have 2 vacancies.
Right. I think we're gonna bring it back. Bring those notes back just for safety.
Yeah.
The next time, but we'll continue with content.
Yeah. All right, are folks okay with me moving on to the next topic? I really appreciate all of the discussion. It's been so helpful. And I know BC will really appreciate it as well. So it's good that we're recording this meeting. Knowing BC, he'll be watching it probably Monday or Tuesday. And he's on a short vacation now. That's why he's not with us today. But again, thank you all for your comments. And if you have additional feedback after the meeting, please feel free to send me or BC an email. We really welcome additional feedback. And we will bring this back to all of you for another review and feedback. So again, thank you. So with that, I think I'll move on to the next item, which is an update on BayREN. And let me get my slides here. All right. Everybody sees my slides. Okay, so Anna introduced herself at the beginning of the meeting, and what we wanted to do for you today is give a brief kind of update on BayREN and talk specifically about the new role that Anna is taking on, which we're really excited about as an additional benefit for our local jurisdictions. So just a brief kind of reminder of what BayREN is. So BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, which is a coalition of our 9 counties in the Bay Area. And we're a network of local governments that are partnering to promote resource efficiency at the regional level and focus on energy, water, and greenhouse gas reduction. BayREN is led by the Association of Bay Area Governments, and it offers resource efficiency programs to all of the 9 counties. And BayREN has been in existence since 2013. Provides outreach, training, technical assistance, funding, and resources to make the Bay Area and California a greener, more resilient, more equitable, and energy efficient place to live. So very high aspirations and a critical piece of us being able to meet our climate goals here in Sonoma County. One last note on BayREN, it is funded by utility ratepayer funds through the California Public Utilities Commission, as well as other sources. And all the staff and representatives are local government employees. So just some background on BayREN. And over the past 10 years, you can see some of the statistics or metrics around the accomplishments of BayREN. So avoided 156 million tons of carbon, completed 64,000 housing unit upgrades, created 12,777 clean energy jobs, and paid 66 million in incentives. So quite a phenomenal 10 years that BayREN has accomplished. And so recently the CPUC, or California Public Utilities Commission, approved a new BayREN budget for the years 2024 through 2027. And that new budget will underwrite or fund the 6 existing programs that you see shown here on the screen, which are the single family, multifamily, commercial codes and standards, green labeling, and water upgrade save, which, by the way, water upgrade save is the program that RCPA is the program manager for under Chris Combe. And then as part of that new budget, the CPUC also funded 4 new programs, which you see here highlighted in blue on this screen. And I'll give a brief kind of overview of those 4 new programs, and there'll be a lot more information coming out about the programs as they launch in 2024. So the first new program is called Integrated Energy Services. And this program is designed to provide technical assistance to support integrated energy solutions for public buildings and community resilience centers. So it's envisioned that this service will provide an energy concierge service for local governments to make it easier for local governments to implement energy saving changes in their buildings, and then an energy roadmap service for municipal buildings and community resilience centers. So kind of helping with that planning piece and identifying funding possibilities. It seeks to build, enable, and maintain demand for high-impact integrated building energy upgrades and operations in the public sector in a couple different ways, by satisfying the unique energy and resilience goals of each participating agency. So coordinating existing and emerging programs. And as you all probably know from an individual standpoint, there are so many different programs out there that it's sometimes hard to know what rebate to go after, what program to implement. And it's challenging for local governments as well. So this new service is really meant to help fill that gap. So that's the Integrated Energy Services. The second new program is called Targeted Decarbonization Services. And this focuses on providing information and support for public building decarbonization, which we know a number of our jurisdictions are, working very hard to decarbonize their building. And so this program will support jurisdictions in doing that through things like education, training, providing additional information, and also looking at ways to provide additional financing. And then we have another program that we're really excited about and we see as being very critical to our success here, which is a workforce education and training program. And this program has the goal of growing an energy and efficiency workforce that meets high road job quality standards. And so this wants to work with local employers who pay family supporting wages and engage workers in building the new skills that we need for the future. And so it's called Climate Careers Program. And it's created by the Rising Sun Center of Opportunity. And that will be expanding in partnership with BayREN with this new funding. The next new program is called the BayREN Refrigerant Replacement Program, or BRR for short. And this program is targeted on replacing high global warming potential refrigerants with alternatives to reduce GHG emissions. And it's focused in the food sector. So working with small businesses to replace those high refrigerant pieces of equipment with more environmentally friendly GHG reducing equipment. So that's the BRR, and I think that concludes those new programs. So then I want to kind of turn our attention to the BayREN liaison role. So this slide just highlights the three main areas of expertise and services that BayREN provides to its members. And the second area is what we're really focused on with Anna's new role, which is building capacity for local governments to take better advantage of the BayREN programs, to increase their ability to work with their residents to implement these energy efficiency improvements. So this is a new service that we're piloting here in Sonoma County, and our goal and our hope is that we'll be so successful here that other counties will want to take advantage of this new program and implement something similar in their regions. So Anna's going to be focusing on three kind of main service areas. One is in the area of communication, so providing really ready to publish information to each of our local jurisdictions so that it's very easy to send information out via local government communication channels about BayREN rebate information, new programs that are coming along, how residents can take advantage of these programs. So really supporting all of our jurisdictions in getting that information out more effectively. Climate policy support, so looking at how the BayREN programs can help each of our jurisdictions achieve their climate action goals. So one of the things that Anna's been doing since she started is combing through each of the climate action plans that have been recently, like City of Petaluma just released its blueprint plan. So she's been looking through that and identifying areas that BayREN can help support the goals that the city has set in that plan. So that's what we want to do in terms of policy support. And then lastly, equity policy support. BayREN has equity as a key top priority. And what we want to do with our local jurisdictions is really identify what are the equity needs, what does our community need, and then feed that information back to BayREN so that as it's evolving its programs, they're better able to support our local equity goals. So that's kind of the third area that Anna will be working in. And Anna, would you like to say just a few words about yourself? Background?
Sure. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to taking on this role and moving forward. And I know my next step will be meeting with the individual staff for each of the jurisdictions to better understand some of their needs, get to know the communication networks, and where to move forward from there. And a little background on me. Prior to working at RCPA, I actually worked with the city of Santa Fe and Marin in their sustainability department. So I have a deep appreciation for all the different hats that city staff have to wear, and the kind of need for building out that capacity. So I'm really looking forward to this role, and I'm so excited to be here. So.
Awesome, thank you, Anna. So then lastly, in terms of our timeline, so Anna mentioned I'm starting to meet with city reps to learn more about their goals and their needs related to BayREN. She's developing a series of city profiles so that we have more information on what's happening in each city. Excuse me. And then our goal is by the first quarter of 2024 to fully launch the liaison service and really get these various services in place so that our local jurisdictions can leverage them and really start rolling out these BayREN programs in an accelerated fashion. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And we welcome any questions or comments that anyone has. Yes, Kevin.
Is BayREN involved at all with helping people get home energy audits?
Yes, yeah, that goes into, I believe, the green labeling, and then part of our single family is currently under remodel, so there'll be a little more there for that. But short story is
because I get a lot of questions about that. I recommend that people get them, and they say, "Where do I get one?"
Yeah, I'll connect up with you then.
I'm really excited about this new liaison role. I think it's cool. And you're saying this is not a wider BayREN idea. This is a Sonoma County pilot for BayREN.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of a cool opportunity for us to make this really successful and show off what we can do up here in Sonoma County. It occurs to me that this working with the jurisdictions and supporting what they've already aspirationally drafted they want to do, connecting that up with the BayREN resources is really a missing link. Staff is just overwhelmed, local staff, as you well know from Santa Fe probably. So I'm wondering what indicators, or what are your baseline indicators that you're starting with? And then how are you going to measure success of the next year or two of this rollout? How many residential BayREN green label activities have occurred within a jurisdiction? And some kind of a list like that of the things that you really want to go after strikes me as being useful at this early stage. Give yourself some room to fall short on a few things, but make sure you're tracking that progress so we make sure that this is well, it works.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And I'll just mention that one of the projects that BayREN is working on is a data project to actually create a new data warehouse that will integrate all of the data from the different programs and make it easier for RCPA, for Anna, for example, to track those kinds of metrics that you're talking about. I mean, BayREN has that data now, but it's housed in separate databases for each program. So it's very hard to kind of get that data out in a really meaningful way. And so this new BayREN project and tool will make that much easier. So I definitely want to be tracking.
That sounds good. The other thing is just an anecdote from the city of Sonoma. I noticed you've got the two programs, the Integrated Energy Services and the decarb, which both strike me as being the same target buildings, I think, right? Just different services to those public buildings. And we saw that in previous BayREN technical support cycles. Our sustainability coordinator in Sonoma felt that while the consultants that were sent out were competent and helpful, the audits didn't go deep enough to be actionable by the city. So that's just an anecdote. And something, as you're looking at those two big resource programs that are being started up, how are we going to not make that same mistake with this next round of funding?
Great. Let's see. Jane, did you still have a question or no?
I just wanted to chime in about the database, the dashboard that BayREN is working on, which to some of the comments that Adam made earlier, I mean, this would be one of those when we get the dashboard up, would certainly be from RCPA's dashboard. It would be a link that you could, definitely draw to feed in some of that information about what's going on with BayREN's programs and the numbers, how they apply to Sonoma County. So all good timing. And the other one about the greenhouse calls, that is, so that has been part of the single family program. And with the approval of the 2024 through 27 business plan funding, we are actually, greenhouse calls is going to be moving out. Eventually, we got approval to be the first statewide program outside of an investor-owned utility. And so that's the Home Energy Score program. And that's what we currently use is the Department of Energy Home Energy Score for the greenhouse calls. So just some clarification.
Thanks, Jane. So let's see, Stina.
Yeah, you may have heard that Sebastopol is in financial trouble. And part of it is the success of its BayREN program. So we invited BayREN to our city and they did water audits and people started saving more water. And now the city is low in income from water, but the fixed costs of the system are still there. So the consultant that were hired to deal with the situation recommended to the city that they would have to double up all the rates in order to make up for it. And so this balance between fixed and costs that have to do with use is important. And I wish that maybe in the county we become more aware of it in planning for this. I mean, there's also a place in solar, right? In solar, people start putting solar on their roof, and then the grid is not used so much. And there's this battle between PG&E and the people that promote solar on the roof about rates. So this is an important issue for the county, I feel, that we can have all these savings programs, but Sebastopol kind of walked into a hole by being successful in water saving.
Yes. Sorry, who was a comment?
Yeah, I work for Marin Water, and I mean that's something that districts across the state saw. It was a matter of reducing for the drought. Now maybe they also had reductions for BayREN, but usually you budget 2 to 4 years. How much water you're going to sell, and you don't know how bad a drought is going to be and how much it'll impact. And if you sell water and then you're forced to tell people not to buy what you sell, that's going to be bad for business, and so you have less money overall. But I mean, we've seen almost every jurisdiction in California has had to raise its water rates to make up for the drought, for selling less water. Because like you said, the fixed costs are the same. For Marin Water, it's 95% of the costs are fixed just to get the water to come on when you turn that tap.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that Water Upgrade Safe had been identified as a key factor in that deficit. So I don't know, Anna, you and Chris were also in the meeting.
Yeah, I attended that meeting, and I don't believe that Water Upgrade Save was identified as one of the factors in that major deficit that Sebastopol is experiencing.
Yeah. But I will definitely follow up with Chris, because certainly that's one of her, as she's rolling out this program to different utilities, really wanting to work closely with the utility to make sure that it's not impacting the utilities, bottom line. So definitely something that she's very carefully considering as well. So we'll definitely follow up with her on that. Thank you. Right, yeah, David.
Well, it would seem like there might be an opportunity if there's, let's just accept the premise that energy efficiency or water use efficiency reduces demand, and that puts a burden on the utilities that are providing that. But is there an opportunity to combine that analysis with something? I mean, I've heard several people say that the utilities costs are fixed. Well, maybe they're not. An audit of the utility may find opportunities for cost savings improvement in the operation of the utility, which would at least make up for some of the reduced demand, and the rate increase wouldn't necessarily have to be so large.
Yeah. All right, any last questions? Anybody on the Zoom that has questions?
I have one last question. You know, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's this homes rebate program that'll be rolling out, the energy management program. And I'm wondering if the home energy score that Jane alluded to is a way for a homeowner to track what percentage of energy they saved, which would qualify them for a certain amount of rebate once this rolls out.
Yeah,
if that tool could be.
Yeah, I don't know, Jane, if you have any information on that.
So we're tracking the Inflation Reduction Act pretty closely. And just as they roll out their guidelines, given that that was a federal program and the Department of Energy home energy score is federal, we pretty much, BayREN's been using the DOE home energy score tool since we implemented the greenhouse calls. And we pretty much figured that the rebates that are going to be available through IRA for this will be applicable to somebody getting a home energy score. And then, at the same time, some of you might be aware, the California Energy Commission is also having to look at their home energy score or home energy rating service rulemaking around that and what they're going to do around their whole house home energy rating, which was their HERS 2. And so we've been in conversations with the CEC as well about what that's going to look like, and if that's something that like home energy score can align with, or they're ordered to take a look at that, and so we're certainly in conversation with them as well. I mean, it would be nice if we could align all of this so that there's ease for community members that are participating in this.
We're still talking about this, Jane, aren't we?
Pardon?
You and I met like 15 years ago talking about exactly this stuff.
Yes. We're still talking about it.
We've barely made any progress on integration, interoperability, and scoring
Suggest
systems.
that we go ahead and move on to the next topic, because we do have Adam here to give us
one logistical question. Do you have a contact phone number?
I do. I can give you my business card.
Yeah, that would be grand. I'd like that.
Right.
Thank you.
Great question. All right, I'm gonna turn it over back to Ross, and
and I will turn it right over to Adam for item 6, the Bay Area Greenprint.
Great. Thank you all. I'm going to make this fairly quick, but what I wanted to provide to you today was a presentation on a regional environmental land use planning tool called the Bay Area Greenprint. It's a collaboration between a number of different nonprofits that was launched in 2017. It was through Greenbelt Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, Bay Area Open Space Council, now together Bay Area, American Farmland Trust, and Green Info Network are the folks that put it together. Essentially, what this tool is trying to do is be able to give people information about a variety of different environmental services that the region provides, but also integrate policy information, environmental justice data. So there's a lot of information in here. What I wanted to be able to highlight and just kind of give you an overview is that the way that this data is divided up is in these different nature's values and benefits. So just reading down the list quickly: food production, water supply, water quality, water hazard risk reduction, prioritized habitat connectivity, compensatory mitigation, outdoor recreation, carbon storage, and then also looking at issues of air quality, urban greening, climate change, policy, and resilience. So there's a lot of data in here. And what I wanted to really point out too is this analyze and report feature. When you land on this page, what essentially you see on the left and in the map are the overlap of nature's values and benefits as they're listed here on the screen in this assessment tab. And so it's a way to be able to look at where there are particular values, if we want to look at the overlap of prioritized habitats and food production, for instance. The darker areas are where those overlap will occur. So that's one of the tools there. The more powerful tool, though, I think is in the top gray boxes up here. And I should also mention this is free. You can go online, BayREN.org. Unfortunately, it's not capable on your phone, but you can get on any other device. And so what I wanted to be able to do is just show how you can develop an in-depth report. So there's a number of different options. You can draw an area either as a buffer or draw a line. If you have a shape file, you can upload it. But what we just added were a number of different pre-selected areas. So we've had cities and counties, watersheds, but we just added census tracts, census designated places, and then unincorporated county areas. So Zeno, to your point, I think census tracts is a great way to be able to understand where your kind of neighborhood, in essence, if we're thinking about population, where there are particular issues. So if you want to just be able to then say, click on an area on the map, that should take you straight to that census tract, and then you can say, get report. So now we have a Area Greenprint report down here. Again, we have map layers for a number of different issues. Climate change, urban green are two that in particular I thought were very relevant, but also carbon and air quality for this group. As you then scroll down is when you'll see the kind of depth of the report. So here we have an overview of this area. We see what county it's in, priority conservation areas, what protections there are, agricultural policies, hazards, and these tabs as you go along provide a little more depth and information. So in this area, you can see what's the above ground live carbon storage, soil carbon storage. And as you can see, as you highlight on an item, then that definition comes up. So there's tabular data kind of in these tables, but there's also a lot of helpful descriptions. So in this case, there's a did you know, avoiding disturbance in this area would have greenhouse gas emission reduction benefits equivalent to getting at least over 9,000 passenger vehicles off the road. So we go down into air quality. We look at, there's issues of climate risk, resilience. What's great, I think, for our group is particularly the resilience issues. So this is looking at climate change issues. As we scroll down, we can see how this area relates to carbon storage, sea level rise, floods, fire risk, water supply. And anytime you want to look at a layer, there's these little radio boxes there. You can scroll back up and see exactly what the data layer is, and that'll also then turn on here. So we see it's the priority groundwater basins. If you want to overlap several layers, there's some functionality to do that with some transparency sliders. And then the last thing I want to show you real quickly was also a new equity atlas. I'm sorry, not equity atlas, an equity tab that looks specifically around the community issues, environmental justice issues that might be relevant for your area. So we think about disparities in access, disparities in exposure to urban heat islands, sea level rise, housing related issues, demographics. So you understand who's the community that we're trying to help or work with in this area. And then the last quick thing, I'm sorry I'm going so fast. I want to give time for the rest of this meeting, that I wanted to just give a quick plug for was something that I think can help some of the tree planting efforts in this area. So there's a layer under urban greening. And if you say, okay, let's get rid of all this, you could just say clear all. I want to look at priority landscapes for tree planting. So what this layer is, it's a combination of 5 different elements, including daytime population density, land surface temperature, air pollution exposure, lack of urban tree canopy, and degree of land surface imperviousness. So as you scroll around, you can see where those areas overlap and be able to prioritize tree planting in those areas. So with that, I would recommend that if you have questions, please get in touch with me. And I'd be happy to go through this, give a presentation to any other groups that you might want to benefit from this information. And with that, I'll maybe just cut myself off because I know we have a few more things to go through. Wow.
Very impressive.
Green prints. Yeah. So, and your contact info is in the agenda.
Yes. We'll make sure it's on there.
Yeah, you know, if you get in touch. Yeah. So continuing on, I know there's some time constraints, but I do want to give a chance for members to report out by jurisdiction. I would ask you just keep it brief, but if you have anything that you'd like to share related to this meeting, start with Cloverdale.
Hi, this is Jane. I don't know if Kristen was on since I joined a few minutes late. I have no report.
In Katati, I didn't see anyone today. Hillsburg.
My update is that on this coming Monday, the city staff is expected to present the final version of our climate mobilization strategy to the city council for approval, and it includes 93 listed actions, and 62 of them are already designated the implementation plan for the next 1 to 3 years. So we're feeling really positive about that. Also, like the other cities, we're working on our active transportation plan updates with the consultant and the CCA, and that's moving along as well.
Excellent. And Petaluma.
I'll share it with Pete. November, coming month, we start planting trees, and I would like to tell you all that success breeds success, and we were able over the 6 months hiatus to garner some significant grants for tree planting. So it will put us much, much closer to our goal of 10,000 trees, but more importantly, that success has also moved the city of Petaluma to support relief directly. So it's given us not only access to staff, but more access to public open space that, you know, is part of our community. So anyway, we're very proud of that and very encouraged by the fact that, you know, if you just really put some muscle behind it, you can make progress.
Awesome. So also in Petaluma, Tanya mentioned it. We just released the draft blueprint for carbon neutrality, Petaluma's greenhouse gas reduction program, which is a new title for our climate action plan. And it was released on October 2nd. It was presented at our Climate Action Commission meeting last night. And at that meeting, they set up an ad hoc to look at it in detail and make comments, and I want to put you in touch with them. Concurrently, our active transportation plan, which is the update of our 2008 bike ped master plan, which has been in the works for several years. The consultant has really produced very little. And so an ad hoc of our pedestrian bicycle advisory committee is pretty much writing the active transportation plan. And it's a real effort to make sure that that integrates, harmonizes with this new greenhouse gas reduction plan. One other thing I just wanted to mention, on October 21st, Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition will be holding a bike advocacy summit for anybody who's interested. That's it.
Excellent. And Rhonda Park, Shirley, thanks for it.
Hello, yes, thank you. Actually, last night we had a meeting with the Planning Commission and BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, over the active transportation plan. So we were all looking at it, and all eyes were on it. It looked pretty good for us. So we got lots of stuff to do on the park. The other thing is a heads up to folks that had a moratorium on gas stations. It looks like the Planning Commission was looking at making some adjustments to our moratorium, and that is to add hydrogen fuel stations. So it won't be new gas stations, but they will. I think they okayed adding hydrogen fueling. So that's a FYI to some of you folks. You may see that coming down the pike. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you. And then moving to Santa Rosa. Kevin, I don't have no updates. Okay, we will continue to Sebastian.
Sure, just a quick one. Not a whole lot to report. We're in this funny place of having many irons in the fire, but the fire is not burning super hot, so the forging goes a little slowly, like sustaining everybody's energy. I would say that our most successful ongoing program these days is the compost giveaway. So 4 times a year, twice in the spring, twice in the fall, we get 80 yards of compost delivered free through Sonoma Green Waste. Of course, it's coming from slightly out of the county. It's really popular. People are getting it up. Most of the pile disappears within one morning, and then the rest of it's gone within a day or two. A lot of repeat people, a lot of people asking where it's from, and it's a pretty good community event when that happens. Let's see, we have had to cap sort of a limit on how much people can take. We're sort of trying to get more homeowners rather than fewer farms, and so there's a little bit of negotiation. If it's a school garden, they say go ahead and take some extra. Ironically, one of the big logistical hurdles with it is managing the cars, all the cars that show up to come get the compost. And folks have this real strong instinct to sit there idling and then shuffle forward 10 feet to get to the next spot. And there's a lot of like, they'll sit there, let your motor wait, I will come get you. I have to say that about 30 times an hour sort of thing. But that being said, it's really working well, and the city is happy because we're helping them meet their requirements for SB 1383 to get a certain amount of repurposed green waste per citizen. So far, win-win by and large.
Excellent. Any other first festival? All right, and moving to Sonoma.
Yeah, Tom is on the Climate Action Commission for the city. They had a public outreach meeting last night. There's a draft climate action strategy available for public review, and it will go to the city council in early November. So this is a big step forward. There had been a long hiatus in the city where there was not a commission that was empowered to look at these things, and now we've got actually got a strategy. So that's progress. Thank you.
Excellent. And I don't think we have anyone from Windsor, so we will move to Corsi's district. Tyler, any updates? No. And Travis, Jake, any updates from you?
I'm just thinking actually about Rohnert Park and the general plan, which has still not been updated, but it's my belief that that general plan update, which includes the climate element, will in fact over the next 12 months go through a process. And I think it's interesting that Rohnert Park now has a sustainability officer who's in charge of that particular element of the general plan. So I think that's worthwhile keeping track of. And just thinking about Sonoma State University and Claudia Luke Center for Environmental Inquiry, there's a lot of resources on that campus. And I really don't think we've ever established the connectivity with Sonoma State University's science programs that we should have.
Excellent, thank you. And then lastly, District 5, June. Okay, excellent. And then moving on to RCPA update on activities. Anything to report, Tanya?
I guess the one thing I wanted to mention to the group, so we talked a lot about BayREN, which is in the activities report. Wanted to just let folks know that RCPA worked with a number of our local jurisdictions to submit a grant to the Office of Planning and Research's Regional Resilience Planning Grant Program. And this was at the request of several of our jurisdictions who have in their climate action plans a desire to, or an item to implement microgrids. And so we've submitted a grant proposal to help Sonoma County develop a regional strategy around microgrids. And we should know sometime this fall if we're selected for that grant. And if we are awarded the grant, the work would begin in probably early 2024. So just wanted to provide that funding update. And of course, we continue to look for additional grant funding to support our efforts.
Excellent. Lastly, announcements on our end. Just next CAAC meeting will be January 12th. Don't believe I have anything else. Any last announcements?
You said January 12th?
I did.
Thank you.
Yeah, in that case, we will adjourn. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
1 o'clock.